G'day YouTube, my name's Lance and welcome to Bundy Bears Shed. Well, this will be another Kangaroo Stew episode. And just a bit of a catch up on what's happened in the week. We had a busy week at work, sold quite a bit. As far as figures went, things have been very quiet in business, and this week or this month actually, that just finished at the end of October, was one of the best ones we'd had for a while. So we're feeling a bit positive that things are turning a little bit, and we put a heap of stuff on our webpage, queenslandtractorspares.com.au, and we put a bit of stuff on our eBay store. We have a little eBay store, and I'll tell you something about eBay: you'll never make any money out of eBay. It isn't a bad advertising tool, but that's about as far as it goes for making money on eBay. But I came home one afternoon on Thursday evening, and I heard a tractor running, and Bundy Bears Shed is around 200 metres behind our house. So I just came home. Judy, my wife, she was doing stuff in town, so I heard a tractor running up the back, but I didn't come up the back. I thought, oh, the neighbour over the back has got something going on. Something like, getting some slashing done, or, I didn't pay much attention to it. I heard the tractor running and left it at that. Well, I just went to the house and started cooking dinner, and when Judy came home, she went out to have a look at her chooks, and she said, oh, there's a tractor running up the back. And I said, yeah, that's a fella up the back, I thought. And anyway, I got the better of her, and she goes up the back, and she comes back all white-faced, and she says, that Massey 65 of yours is running, and the Lance Bulldog you bought the other week's not there. And I thought, oh shit, I better go and have a look. So she'd stopped the Massey Ferguson 65, and what I'd forgotten to tell her was on Monday through the week, the Lance Bulldog was parked over next to the Massey 65, but I'd shifted it across to the front of the shed. And there was a front end loader there, our loader, and I have a little David Brown 880 that it's just a wrecking tractor that I had over there. So in the semi-darkness, she couldn't actually see the Bulldog. So the Bulldog was there, no worries. But the Massey Ferguson 65 had been running, and it actually has a leaking rear main engine oil seal, which is a job we're going to tackle in the future probably. And it had been running quite a while, because under the tractor, down on the ground, you could see a little patch of oil, and the engine block was quite warm. So with a torch, I was looking around the tractor, just trying to work out what went on, and in the darkness I just saw a little spark, and so I had a look, and the spark was coming out of this relay, and you can see on the relay there's a burnt terminal. And what's happened, for some reason, this relay has shorted out. It's wound the engine over, and the engine started, and with this relay being shorted out, the engine was running, and the battery's dead flat today. So I presume that with this shorted out, the starter was running all the time, that the engine was running. So I've got the battery on charge now. We'll have a look later and just make sure everything's okay. We'll rewire. These little cheap relays, people put them on tractors to stop voltage drop to the starter motor. When your wiring gets old, your power comes from the terminal on your starter motor right up back to your key switch. Then from your key switch on the start position, it comes back down through the safety start switch on a Ferguson, where you have your 1, 2, 3 reverse stick on your left, and you have a low, neutral, high switch on the right. And you have to have the small gear stick in the middle. And there's a little switch that detects that. So by the time the power goes all the way from your starter up to your dash, up to your key switch, back down through your safety start switch again, then off to your starter, over the time it gets voltage drop, and they become a bit lazy starting. So what people do, they put a relay. So where the power still goes through your safety start and everything, instead of having to throw the big solenoid in on the starter motor, all it has to do is shut a set of points in a relay. Then this relay acts as a switch, and it just puts power from one terminal straight to the other, which gives you a short distance of wire from your starter motor positive battery terminal to your starter excite button. So fitting a relay is not a bad thing. It does help with the old tractors, helps them start better, but this is probably just a crap quality one. The little Fergie 35s and things, they had quite a substantial one. It looked like a rider mower starter. Yeah, it had a bit of beef to it. So, but anyway, we'll have a look at that in time. Hopefully today we'll get to it. The battery hopefully will charge up. If not, I might find another battery and go for a walk over there and do it. But I am grateful that I had the tractor in neutral, because without that she would have tootled off across the paddock and through the fence and across the neighbour's driveway and into the bushland near us, and I suppose it just would have kept going until it hit a tree big enough to slow it up. So I wouldn't have been revving hard, you know, it was just a little bit above idle, but it's just a bit of a reason why it's a good thing to have your tractors in neutral when you're not on them, in case something else happens. And on the same note, years ago where I was working, and it was a Fergie 65, on a Fergie 65 as well, we come to work one morning and we couldn't open the door. There was a Fergie 65 pushed right up against the door, so we couldn't slide it open. And we thought, oh, that's odd, but what had happened is the rats had hopped up in under the dash, chewed a few wires through, the wires joined, the starter wound in, and the tractor in low gear just went up and sat against the door, and the back wheels just kept turning and turning and turning, and the stopper was out on that occasion though. The engine didn't start, but on the starter the wheels just kept turning and turning until the battery went flat. So yeah, it's happened a couple of times, 3 or 4 times that we're aware of on Fergie 65s. Now why, I have no idea. It's just coincidence, I'm sure. But anyway, look, we'll go for a wander around the shed. I'll show you what I get up to today. We should have a few more interesting projects coming up. I've done all my touring around. You'll notice videos from Kangaroo and from going to museum and places like that. So we've done that. We're all settled now. We've been to some great places, met some great people, and we've travelled with friends, and we've had a ball. But now, between now and Christmas, you'll have to put a bomb under me bum to get me out of the shed, I think. I love it at home here playing in the shed. But you still have to socialise with your friends and go and look at different vintage machinery things when they're on in your area, just for the pleasure of seeing them, but just as importantly is to support them. Support the people that put the dues on, because if you don't support them, they won't be on. Yeah, if they go to the effort to put on a rally of some sort and no one comes, it won't be long, there'll be nothing to go and see. So by travelling around a little bit and supporting some of the local and not so local shows, that ensures that they'll be here in years to come. So anyway, over the next few weeks we should be able to put a few good videos together. I have one on the John Deere hydraulic pump coming up. That's the 23cc pump that's in the smaller John Deeres, the 2130s, the 1640s, 2040s, 3140s, 3350s, 26, 2850s. So it's a popular pump. We've done a lot over the years, but people might not understand how they work. They're an 8-cylinder piston pump, radial piston pump, and as such they can't suck. They actually need a charge pressure to feed them a little bit of oil to keep them going. So I have a couple here. That will be a project that's probably won't be too far away. But anyway, stay tuned today. As I get up the stuff around the shed through the day, we'll come and grab the camera and point it at a few interesting things. So stay tuned. I'll try and keep it interesting for you. Right, this little tool here, that's a Repco manifold grinder. And how it worked is that there's a stone, a cup stone, sits in the middle there, and then there's a guide. And the guide sits there like that. It's bolted down, and as you bring a cylinder head or something through, you can bring it through. It uses these surfaces to support itself, but the stone sticking up just proud, it will tidy the surface up for you, and after a couple of runs you can get manifold and cylinder heads quite nice out of it. We did the old 28 Chevy head on this and it come up nicely. So over the time of using it, this stone has worn down. And being a Repco brand, I went to our local Repco stores and asked them to find a new stone for me. Well, they just couldn't do it. The machine's obsolete. They don't have any more stock. No reference of it. So anyway, I just wasn't prepared to throw the machine away because of that. So I got onto a company in Sydney and asked them could they supply one, and they said no, but we can make you one. So I got them to make one. It's probably a bit too deep through here, and I believe the stone was probably made in China. We're not 100% sure, but it took me 12 weeks to get it. I had to pay for it up front. It was $230 for the stone, and I had to pay for it 12 weeks up front when I ordered it, but this last week it came. And you have a bolt holes here. You have 3/8 UNC thread, and the stone locates on a boss down in here. And what I asked them to do was, when they made it, was give me 3/8 UNC clearance holes. So a UNC bolt could actually be pushed down through it, and the thread on the main drive boss engage. But something got lost in the translation, and they actually tapped it out to 3/8 UNC. So I'll have to set it up. I'll drill these out to 3/8 clearance and see how we go with it. But another job we're going to have to do on this machine is, as time goes on, you wind the handle here. This locks it in place, and this little handle down the bottom there, I'll just see if you can, yeah, this little handle down here, that's the one that decides how far out the stone sits. So when the machine works, you wind the handle, the stone comes up, but you never actually need to wind it back down again. So over time, as the stone comes up, and this can be over a number of years, the stone will come up, but you never have to wind it down. So when I've tried to wind it down to accommodate this stone, that's not going to quite work, is it? Which is no problem, we can dress the stone, but at the cost of the stone, why waste all that? So I'll pull the front off here and we'll look at the thread, because it looks like there's probably 1.5 inches lower that the main body here can go. This fella here, it looks like it can go quite a bit lower yet, so I don't believe we run out of thread. So we'll pull the front off, we'll access the thread, we'll clean it all up, and we'll have it going as low as it once did. I wouldn't mind placing a bet that we still have to pull a bit off the top there. We didn't know how long the old stones were. We couldn't find one. No one had any dimensions on them anymore. So we just chose 100mm for a size. So the 100mm, perhaps we should have picked 75mm, but we don't know. But we'll pull the front off, we'll get it down as low as we can, we'll free it all up, and when I've got the new stone, we'll dress the stone and we'll do a bit of a demo. There's something on a little grinder here that's always annoyed me a little bit, but not annoyed me enough to actually fix it. We've all got stuff like that, haven't we? But anyway, the starter switch, at some stage in its life, it's been put upside down. And this is where you start it, but the emergency stop here, it should be at the top. But for some reason, whoever's done it, years ago, they put it in upside down, then they must have thought, well, bugger it, leave it there. But I've got all the knobs off now. It took a bit of getting them out. They've just been there a long time. And now in here, there's a thread mechanism in there, and there's an electric motor here. So we'll give all this a bit of a service. If I can just get back down there again, here we go. Yeah, we'll give all this a bit of a service. And yeah, we'll just try and free all the threads up, make sure it's ready for another 50 years, I suppose. You'll notice in Bundy Bears Shed, it's a big steel shed. and you'll hear the creaking and cracking of the roof as we do videos. But yeah, as the sun comes out, the roof expands and you hear it cracking and creaking as it heats up, and then as a cloud comes over or something like that, you hear it once more contract. So it expands and contracts all day, and you sort of go a little bit deaf to it, but it's something that we do notice in the videos. And it's quite a long shed, so yeah, so there's a fair bit of creaking going on. I'm in the first bay here now, so yeah, it's 80 foot long, the shed. But yeah, that's all the noise you can hear anyway. It creaks and groans. It's just quietened up now, which is nice. But anyway, back on with the show. We'll do a bit of mucking around here and we'll free things up and we'll tidy things up and see how we go. Something I've noticed, just laying under here having a look, it was about time she had some new belts. These belts are starting to delaminate. I don't know how long they've been in there. I've never had to replace a belt ever. There's another bit on the left there, looks like it's about to flip out. But anyway, we'll find some new belts for it. Should be flash when we're finished. I've got the front off the switch and we'll have to turn the whole body around. But yeah, it's interesting to see how it works. When you push him on, this little bail here holds it in, and that holds the points in there closed. So it's a positive engagement. Then when you hit the emergency stop, it pushes this fella, and he lets him up again. Simple. Anyway, we'll get the whole switch just turned over. I don't muck around with electrical stuff much, but turning this is fine. The won't be too difficult. We'll get it back to how it should be and move on to the thread that we originally pulled the thing apart for. Another little interesting feature of this is on this pulley here. It goes across and runs off the electric motor, and as this whole spindle goes up and down, because that's the main spindle that the stone is on, this is how they've chosen to have the pulleys, and it just slides up and down here. It's a little bit tight at the moment, but it just slides up and down there. They've got a little spring here to support it, and as the stone goes up and down, that keeps the belt in line. It just finds its own way. And yeah, so I just thought that was a bit interesting, a different way of doing it. Right, here's a picture of what goes on down in the centre. That's where the stone goes, and this here is the spindle that drives the stone. This housing here, that's nice and smooth. It sits down into this bore here, and then there's a bolt that comes through here, and it actually pokes through a hole in the back there, and that holds it in position once this goes up and down. Now, to get this fella going up and down, they have a worm drive. The worm drive sits inside a housing here. This housing bolts to the bottom of the other housing. This worm drive sits down in there, and then to bring him up and down, this fella is bolted on through this housing, through this housing here, which bolts onto there. So we've freed the whole lot up now. The nut turns very nicely on the thread. We'll grease it up. I'm not sure we're going to get much more lower with the stone because of this and this fella here. It can only come down so far. So what we'll do, we'll sit this right down as far as it can go without any of the threads and the other stuff in there. Make sure it's bottomed out in the housing here, and then we'll be able to do a measurement on the stone and see how much we have to take off it. Right, we've slid the main assembly. It's down as far as it'll go. It's bottomed out. So we bring the stone over. Holy dooly, look at that. Okay. The stone can't have been very big to start with. Anyway, I wonder can I devise a way to come in here, spin it up, come in here with a piece of metal of some sort, and actually grind this top piece off, so if we ever need it again, we can grab this extra piece of stone and epoxy it on to the main base. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have a go. If you've got any ideas, put them in the comments on the bottom of the video here for me. But yeah, it looks like I've ordered the stone way too deep, so it can't have an awful lot of stone anyway, so it must only have, well, this piece here. By the time we got to there, the bolts that were running were holding in the centre here, that were holding the stone in place on the spindle in here. Well, this and the bolt holes were actually rubbing up on the guide piece, on the bottom of that guide piece, so it appears that it doesn't have an awful lot of stone. The new stones are quite shallow. But anyway, we'll have a think about this. We'll set the whole thing up, and yeah, we'll just see what we can come up with. There's got to be a way of doing that. Well, here we go. This is our old Ford loader with a couple of dogs helping it. But the old Ford loader, we've had it for a lot of years now, and I originally bought it off a man that run the engine out of oil, and it had picked up on the crankshaft, so I whacked a new crank in, and yeah, did the engine up. Didn't cost us a lot of money, and I did the flex plate on the transmission, and also did the Ford reverse shuttle clutch packs. It's a Ford reverse. You have a 1, 2, 3, 4 as in a speed range, then you have a Ford reverse, so it's been a great thing. We use it for lifting. There's a couple of little things we need to do to it. My little lifting eye here is about worn out, so we'll probably put one of them on. Whether that happens today, I can't say, but the main job we're going to do is in here, and this down here, that's your park brake housing, and the park brake has never worked since I've owned the machine. The lever has always been pretty well seized up, and you get it up, then you couldn't push it back down again. So anyway, today, well, last week actually, I bought some new brake discs for it, and I thought today, while I had a few minutes, I'd actually get this brake going, because in the past I've actually, when I've been looking to slow up or pull up, and hop off and hitch something, I've chucked a bit of wood under the front or the back wheels, and when you look down the front of the shed here, down towards the dam, it's all downhill, and it's not downhill bad, but anyway, it still wants to roll sometimes, so we'll do that. There's an old seat on it that's been on it for years. I've just left that on because you're never on this machine long. You know, you're on it for 5 minutes doing a lift or moving something around. You don't spend all day on it, so I haven't worried about the seat too much. I've got enough padding on my bum to cover that. But I've just wrecked a little David Brown tractor, and it had a nice seat on it, and this machine sits out in the weather, so we'll put that seat on as well. But the main job today is to do the brake, and we'll see how we go. I'll follow along and we'll see what we find once we pull the cover off. Well, the seat's off. This screw here is very tight, and it's actually got a locator in it, so what we need to do now, just to get it down there, is just double nut it, and that should hold it down for us and get it right back into place. So there's enough room for the whole thing, the seat to sit down on top of it, but we'll leave that off because that'll give us clearance. These are the parts we're using. They're just a couple little brake discs. In this instance we're using Repco parts. They were the only ones that had any in stock in Australia at the time. Their part number is 435-1. So anyway, I'll set the camera up back here, pan him out just a little bit, so you can see what I'm up to, and we'll go around and start undoing some bolts. We'll start by undoing this handle out of the way. We can't actually do get any nut guns and that in here. There's just not the room, so we'll just see what we can get away with. Probably a longer spanner in here mightn't hurt. That should come straight off. In the past, I'd pulled the pin out. It was the only way I could get the tractor moving again once it jammed. Once it jammed on, the pin let the whole mechanism come back down again. The bolts are quite easy to come out. There's quite a bit of water dripping out of it. I'll just go and get something to give that a bump and be back in a sec. We've taken these brake discs out. You can see that the spline is quite worn here where this disc has been sitting. That doesn't look very good, does it? The spline's quite warm, but I imagine we can turn it around and grab a new piece of spline. And it had this spring in here, and the spring pushes the two discs apart. But this brake actuator, that should actually be quite free to come out. And as this lever here pulls up and down, it gets fatter and skinnier, jamming the plates in. So you can see why the brakes didn't work. It looks like it hasn't been working for quite a long time with the wear there. But with new discs, a new disc will put the back disc will probably be fatter, and it'll probably pick us up in a new spot. And just for around home here, it'll be okay. In an industrial situation, it would be no good. But yeah, you can tell we're at home. See under here, I've got my Australian safety thongs on. So the anything that drops or falls, it might hit me in the toe. So you wouldn't be allowed to do that in an industrial situation, but at home it's fine. But I'll try and free this up now and yeah, try and get this fellow out. Work out why it's seized in so tight. Must be full of rust, I'd imagine. Well, there's the rubber. We got the rubber out and you can see why the water got in there. So we'll have to hunt one of these down. But that won't stop us from continuing on, just to try and get the rest of it apart. Well, we finally got the park brake pieces apart on the 3550 Ford front end loader, and it took quite a few hours to get it out. The water had leaked in, and the whole mechanism, which is this fella here, was quite rusty. It was rusty in the bore, but once we've got him out, you can see here, look at the wear in here. So So that's just unserviceable. So that's all we'll be able to do on that job this week. We'll order some parts through the week, and we'll have to order a whole new mechanism here. I presume you can still get them. If not, we'll work something else out for it. But in the meantime, yeah, we'll just have to go to town and order a few more parts, and I've been driving it that long without a park brake. It's not going to matter for a while, but I might sneak that new seat on. I'll leave you with it for a bit. This handbrake's always been stuck. It's been all seized, but look, it's freed up nicely. So that's as good as we'd like. So we won't be able to do any more on the brake job this weekend. We'll order some more parts, and that was just something I thought I'll just do while I had a chance to. And when the other parts come, we'll clean the whole show up, and yeah, we'll try and get it all working again. It's another angle of the stone, and this is as low as it goes, so we obviously have to cut this down. And I've been wondering whether to get a lathe tool or something and set up just to grind it away here, you know, have a sacrificial one. But I've also come up with the idea of these diamond cutting wheels that we use on a 4-inch angle grinder for cutting bricks. So we can see it needs to be cut just above the lower white band. So I'm thinking of, at the moment, wind it up so I can support the angle grinder and run this around and just see if this would eat away at the stone. So I'll have the stone that's bolted to this base here, to the back plate, but that will also give me another nice piece of stone that I could tidy this back plate up on and epoxy on. Yeah, so I can glue this stone to the old backing plate and clean all this old stuff off. So we're having to think about doing that. If you think of a reason why I can't between now and next week, let us know. I won't move on this until next weekend. I'll think about it for a little bit more and just make sure it's a safe option. I don't want to start cutting away here and for some reason the whole stone shatter or crack or something. I have to be comfortable in my own mind that that will be a good idea. So anyway, if you think it's dangerous or think of a good reason why we shouldn't do it, leave a comment. But apart from that, I reckon it's a goer. Well, here's an update on the starter motor for the Massey 65. We put it on a low charge for a day and a half, the battery, and it come up fine. It's testing really well. But we've now gone to the starter motor, hooked it back up, done a little bit of rewiring, and the starter's dead. So apart from putting power to the exciter wire back here, we've also put power straight to this terminal, and there's just nothing. It's just a very slight spark. You can see where around this corner here, you can see around the bolt there's a little bit of plastic melted, and we'll come around this way. The teeth have been engaged for some time, and on the edge there they're quite worn. The ring gear's got a bit of a mark too, but I think the ring gear will be okay. We'll keep going with the ring gear, but looks like it's something else to buy this week, a starter motor for the 65. Anyway, that's how it goes when you've got a few bits of gear around. Well, this is something that might interest you. This is my mate Dave. He's got an old Fordson in. He's left it at my place for a couple of weeks, and the wheels are a bit buggered, so he's made that frame underneath. We'll zoom in on that a little bit, and what that does, that makes it movable in the shed without the wheels, so we can get around it. But being an old Fordson, it's an old it's a Land Army one. It has a plaque on the tank that says it's a Land Army one, and Dave, last weekend or the week before, he put a bit of inox down the bores, and the engine's turning over freely. He's got high hopes, so he put oil down it yesterday, and now he's pulling parts off and cleaning out the carburetor and cleaning the plugs and all that sort of thing. So anyway, if it goes later, we'll certainly be there. We'll be there with the camera. We'll all be running around wagging our tails. Now on the side of the tank there, you can see this plaque. That plaque was put on the ones with the Land Army. It's a bit hard to read at the moment for us to focus on, but yeah, we'll get to it. And down here, that's the carby bowl at present. That just about looks like my brake housing on the loader earlier, doesn't it? Anyway, a bit of work to do yet, bit of a tidy up, and yeah, high hopes. We'll just see how it goes. Another thing we found to do is, when you get an old tractor, you haven't had one that hasn't had any loving for a while, put a bowl under it, drain the tank or drain the sump. And we found in the past that often there's a suction strainer in the bottom, and that suction strainer with a little bit of moisture gets a sock over it. So there's a possibility of you starting the engine and running it without any oil pressure. So it's not hard to do on a little Fordson. So yeah, just keep it in mind. But yeah, magneto's on. Oh, that's the old magneto, but Dave has a spare, so we'll just see what happens with this. This is why you drop the sump down. Right. All the muck in there. Dave's pulled her out just to let it drain and clean. But yeah, that's a good example on why you do it. Another Bundy Bears Shed Kangaroo Stew over and done with. Look, thanks for watching. I hope you get something out of it. Our little antics in the shed here. We need to get a new brake actuator and things like that for the front end loader. That won't happen straight away, but probably next week. We may, if we can get the parts through this coming week, next weekend we'll film putting it back together. And we also have to think about the grinding stone, on which way we go with that. So look, if you enjoy watching it, leave a comment down the bottom. If we've been a bit of a deal, well, tell us about it. We're happy, we don't mind. Let us know what you think. Like, subscribe to our channel, that way you won't miss any of the goings on. And yeah, slowly it's growing. We're getting quite a few viewers. At this stage, the fuel injection overhaul is our best video, with over 16,000 views in about 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that. So that's a bit of a cracker, that one. That was the most interesting one, which I do wonder what people want to see on the videos, and we just chug along and do whatever comes our way in the shed. There's always something to do when you have a little bit of machinery around and you're a machinery bloke. So anyway, like and subscribe, and yeah, leave a comment down the bottom. We like to know what you're thinking. I'll catch you later, eh?